Well, good morning, CHD TV. Welcome to Doctors and Scientists. I am so excited for this show. Today, I get to be the thorn between three roses. I am joined by Maura McDonald, Layla Sentner, and Dr. Elizabeth Mumper. Welcome all of you to the show. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I am going to be the lone representative of the Y chromosome today. Go me. But I wanted first to introduce all of you. I'm flabbergasted because to have this much health and advocacy in one place, I feel like my body's healing just being around you. But let's start with Maura. Maura, you have been an amazing advocate for so many years, and you're a uniter, and I really appreciate that about you and your work as you bring organizations together. So tell us a little bit about your background.
Thanks, Brian. Thank you so much for having us on this show. I'm very excited also to be here. So I started out many years ago, over 40 years ago, as a nurse in labor and delivery and pediatrics and teaching natural childbirth classes. And I witnessed early on and throughout the years the over-medicalization of the birthing process, of child rearing. For every ailment, there was a drug. For every infection or potential infection, there became a new vaccine. And it really alarmed me. And when I raised my own kids, I really dove into natural ways of raising healthy kids in this ever-increasing toxic world. And because I'm not a person who can stay quiet about much, I started organizing children's health conferences. And I did that early on with people like Dr. Leo Galland, who wrote Superimmunity for Kids, and Dr. Billy Crook, who wrote The Yeast Connection, and Dr. Marianne Block, who wrote Natural Approaches for ADHD, No More Ritalin. And so I just really felt strongly that bringing these types of authorities to the public, to parents, to teachers, to other pediatricians, therapists, would be really helpful. And as the years went on, I thought naively everybody would catch on to, of course, we have to raise our children more naturally, and we have to lessen their toxic load. But the opposite was true. We introduced more and more vaccines. The world became more polluted. Foods became more processed. It was challenging to witness my children's friends and schoolmates having all these conditions that they were being treated with medication for. So luckily, I was able to connect with Dr. Sidney Baker. I was his nurse for a long time, and he started the Defeat Autism Now organization with Dr. Bernie Rimland and Dr. John Pangborn, and they asked me to coordinate their conferences. And that's where I met thousands of parents of children with autism and hundreds of doctors and wonderful labs and researchers who were looking at the explosion of autism. And they were looking at, which was near and dear to my heart, the underlying causes of the autism epidemic. And I was able to organize those conferences for 10 years, and it just literally changed my life because all of us together began to find answers. It kind of gets me emotional because there were so many wonderful people working together to really discover things like the gluten and casein-free diet and the changes that made in children, and where these sources of toxins were that were causing problems with children's detoxification abilities. And then, of course, once Dr. Andy Wakefield entered the scene, which I remember him presenting at one of the first conferences I ever organized in 1998, then we realized uh, some of us knew a little bit earlier, but he really brought forth the concept that these vaccines that were growing in numbers exponentially were really problematic for some children. And so that Defeat Autism Now organization and movement was very powerful and certainly a huge influence in my life. And in 2008, when I left that, I started having all these grandchildren and took a little break. But I always wanted to recreate that sense of unity and collaboration. And you know, Brian and Liz, Dr. Mumper was there also in 2019. I kind of was divinely guided to call together 52 thought leaders from different organizations because everybody was doing wonderful things. They were writing books, making movies, starting 501c3s and doing great things, but we really weren't working together that much at that time. And so I had that mission to bring everybody together and start talking about how we could be more impactful and effective in the world in terms of helping reverse the chronic health conditions in our children if we work together. And that takes me to the present time, which is back to our original mission of finding solutions for children's health. And that's where Dr. Mumper and Layla come in, because they also have been doing incredible work in this field. And I presented this idea of doing a series to Layla, and she was so supportive, as she has been for many of us trying to make a difference. And luckily, she wanted to join me in doing this series. And I had worked with Dr. Mumper for years in the Defeat Autism Now conferences. She was the medical director, and I had never met a physician who was had such an incredible ability to explain complex medical issues as Dr. Mumper, in addition to her incredible kindness and wisdom and just being a fantastic pediatrician. So Layla and I interviewed Dr. Mumper, and I'll stop speaking for a minute, but there's some uniqueness to this series that I'd like to mention at some point.
Well, it's so exciting to see what this is becoming. And Layla, I want to talk to you here for a minute. I love your background. I mean, you burst on the scene during COVID. I'm sure that you were active prior to the COVID pandemic, but you were protecting Centner Academy, and you did things so unique based on just common sense principles about what was best for the children at Centner Academy. And you just literally blasted on the scene. That's when we got to know each other. And tell us a little bit more about your background leading up to this Children's Health Solution Series.
Actually, I was completely clueless before COVID. I I think that's that was the bright side of COVID. I think it brought a lot of people who were not familiar of any of this craziness that's been going on right under our nose. I mean, I feel like I was very much in the matrix. I was super blessed that I never vaccinated our daughters, but that was just God telling me not to.
Right.
I was doing the research and I couldn't find anything online. I guess they were censoring it back then as well. So I just didn't. And then 3 years after having our first daughter, my nephew, my great nephew, turned 3, and my niece told me he was diagnosed with autism. And I had remembered just a week prior, a friend of mine telling me that his son was autistic, and he took him to Dr. Buttar and completely reversed his autism. And so that's how this journey for me really began, was COVID and my great nephew being diagnosed with autism.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. And Dr. Mumper, Liz, you really need no introduction. I mean, you have been working with medically fragile children with special needs, for gosh, as long as I've been involved with this movement. And you're a part of MAPS now, which I'm so excited. There is such a good fit. with you and MAPS. So bring us up to date. And then, after you bring us up to date, I'm going to kick it back to Maura to talk a little bit more about the actual series.
I watched one of my patients regress into autism back in 1999, and I felt like not enough was being done for those children. So I started a practice then and decided to devote myself to trying to figure out what was causing what I perceived to be such an increase in children with neurodevelopmental disorders, but also allergic and immune disorders. And as Maura mentioned, I served about 5 years as medical director of the Autism Research Institute and worked with those think tanks and conferences. And now am very excited about MAPS, which is the Medical Academy of Pediatrics and Special Needs, which takes my love, which is taking science and medical information and trying to make it easy to understand so that we can train a bunch of physicians to take care of these children. So we have 2 conferences a year, one in the spring on the East Coast and one on the West Coast in the fall. And we're right now getting ready for our March 13 through 16 conference at Myrtle Beach, which is a great place to be. And registration is still open. We are getting so many new physicians, which is what is so great for me. I think as of this morning, we had 146 clinicians that had never been to MAPS before that have signed up for the spring. So
Excellent.
we really hope to train thousands of doctors because that's what it's going to take to fill the need. We don't just talk about autism and neurodevelopmental disorders. We talk about things like PANS and PANDAS and allergies and seizures, neurologic problems happens to be what's on the plenary for this year. And we find that with complex chronic illness, there are a number of common underlying themes or root causes. So we really try to teach people how to look for those root causes and take care of those underlying pathway problems. So it's really fun to teach there. It's wonderful to see all the camaraderie. And it's been a very rewarding career for me, actually.
Excellent. Excellent. I can't thank you enough for being with us today. And Maura, tell us a little bit more. As a part of the organization and the website, Millions Against Mandates, you've got the Children's Health Solution Series. I love the label because you're looking at solutions. And you know what? If we're going to make America healthy again, we need solutions right away. So tell us a little bit more about what you're doing.
Well, enough about the problems, right? We hear about them every day, and we've been focused on them for a long time. And the interesting thing is there are solutions. It's not that complicated. It's just like Layla said. We've been programmed. We've been living in a matrix, and we've been delusional in terms of our thinking of what creates health and what is health. And our kids are such a motivator, now that I have all these grandkids, and I just love children. I used to be a newborn nursery nurse, and like Layla, like Liz, like so many people, they're our greatest asset, and they're so precious. And so when you see all these children, 66% of our kids with chronic health problems, and you see the number of kids, 1 in 36 with autism, and so many kids with asthma and allergies and ADHD. It's like, it doesn't have to be this way. So what came to me was, and again, this was a bit of, I call it divine guidance. It was an idea to take one specific health condition. We started out with childhood anxiety. We then covered autism in another episode. We just finished filming one on ADHD, and we bring in one holistically, naturally oriented expert who's well-versed in that particular condition. And we have a kind of a casual conversation that is then about the particular health problem, and then about the many practical, affordable, and natural solutions for that particular condition. So after our conversation, it's taken over the recording by the creative director from MAM, Taryn McCracken, who's also, she's a mother of 3 little kids, all, very into natural home births and raising healthy kids. And she is super creative. She adds video and she adds these different types of visuals. So these presentations, these episodes are not just educational, where you just have to take notes but she, like the last one we did on autism, where I was explaining how Dr. Mumper has this ability to take complex issues like the methylation cycles and mitochondrial dysfunction and what is glutathione and how does it work in the body. So while Liz is explaining this and using her very astute abilities to explain these in simple terms that everyone can understand, Taryn is embellishing these recordings with visuals that make it really easy for people to digest and to get. So, and then we wind up with just reviewing what we talked about and giving tons of resources and references. So these are very well referenced episodes on these different conditions. And there's also lots of places. Again, we're all about collaboration. So we refer people to different organizations where they can find different materials. For instance, well, this is a MAM thing, but
Right.
Layla said years ago asked us to create a documentary series on the toxic truth about food and what you can do about it, the toxic truth about toxins and what you can do about it, practical things like water filters and air filters and making your home having less toxins. And then the last episode, Layla had us do, she was sort of the not only the sponsor but guided us through the creation of this series, was the toxic truth about vaccines and what you can do about it. And then we refer people to those videos. We refer them to Moms Across America. We definitely refer them to MAPS because physicians today, part of what makes us go crazy as parents is in our gut. We know as mothers there are natural things we can do, and we go to these so-called experts. And if they're not trained by other naturally oriented clinicians, like the type of training you get at MAPS to dig deep into root causes and underlying issues, then the mother's told, oh, it's just attention deficit. Here's a prescription. No looking at root causes. Your child has autism. They need speech and OT. And learn to live with it. Well, those days are gone. The answers are there, the guidelines are there, the information is there. We certainly don't have all the answers in the Children's Health Solutions series, but we're bringing some very positive information to the forefront that, again, is practical. We're trying to make these ideas we come out with affordable and, in most cases, very naturally oriented. So there's so many things parents can do on their own. And then we tell them, if you get to a point where you need a physician who can take you the rest of the way so your child can get as close to recovery or recovered as possible, then look up medmaps.org and find a physician who's been trained in the MAPS organization to take you the rest of the way in terms of more in-depth investigation.
You're hooking up individuals that have these needs, our children are so precious to us. And parents want this information. They're salivating for this information. And then being able to hook them up with practitioners and not only do that, but educate them. Liz, I want to talk a little bit more about you've been treating patients with special needs biomedically for so many years. Tell me about your endeavors to break down the science so parents understand methylation. I mean, there's the series that is up right now. The episode that's up right now is on autism, and you do such a wonderful job breaking down these concepts. The graphics are just money. They're so really, really wonderful to help people understand. So talk about, your function as a pediatrician, a special needs expert, breaking down this information for parents?
Well, the longer I do this, the more I realize that you have to pay attention to the basics. So I always start with things like the food that the child is eating, how well they sleep, do they have a nurturing family environment, do they get exercise? Those things I work on first because I want to lay a really good foundation. But over the years, we've discovered that there are about 5 different things that many children who either have autism or, in many cases, complex chronic illness have in common. One is a dysregulation of gut function, which in turn affects the brain because of the gut brain connection. We
Right.
find that a lot of kids have immune dysregulation where they tend to be not as good at fighting off various infections or funguses, and more tending toward allergies or autoimmunity. So they need that to be balanced. They often have problems in their mitochondrial function. The mitochondria are the powerhouses of the cell, but they also have these very important regulatory functions. And then detoxification pathways are often impaired. And children often live in a state of chronic oxidative stress, which, as an analogy, is very much like the process where an automobile rusts or an apple turns brown over a couple of days once you cut it. So in MAPS, we take a deep dive into all of those 5 areas, and we try to emphasize the importance of having good nutrition. There are children who respond very well to removal of certain foods in their diets, like casein, which is in milk products particularly, and gluten, which is in various types of wheat products. There are kids that are more susceptible to organophosphate poisoning, which also affects some of their digestive enzymes. So the children that live very close to agricultural spraying are at higher risk. And the list goes on and on. But it's just a matter of attending to the basics and then doing your investigations to try to figure out what pathways we need to work on in order to help the child reach his or her full potential. So like I say, it's challenging, it's fun, and it's really fun for me to teach other people how to do it.
The parents listening to this out there that, maybe you're grappling with this for the first time, maybe this is all just new to you, you can do it. And, with the resources that you're providing through Millions Against Mandates, through MAPS, through Center Wellness, these are helps, these are aids that you're really empowering parents, you're empowering these children to get better. Layla, this is a problem of immense scope. Talk about the scope of the problem. The thing I love about you is as soon as you got red pilled, you wasted absolutely no time. It was like, okay, you know what? This is screwed up. We're going to fix it, and we're going to fix it right now. So tell us a little bit more about the scope of the problem and how you're addressing it.
I'm addressing it on many fronts. And, once I realized what in the world was going on, I reached out to different organizations and I was like, how can I help? My husband and I were actually one of the people that really helped get CHD's new website up and going. We met Bobby, and when we heard what his passion was and his goals were, we were like, wait a minute, we need to be part of this. And so we were excited to help and be part of the solution. And we knew like you guys, we realized there had been so many warriors that have been fighting this fight for so long. We're not going to be the ones that are going to like be frontline, but we can actually support all of you frontline fighters. And so that's what my husband and I decided we were going to be, just the support behind all of you. And it's really been where our focus has been. It's been where majority of our foundation dollars go to. We sold our
Right.
company over 6 years ago, and I had no idea when we sold our company what we were going to use. We transferred a bunch to a foundation of ours. And I was like, I'm just going to put it there, and God is going to tell me what he wants us to do with it. I had no idea at the time. if somebody would have said to me I would be an activist in the vaccine world, I would have probably said you're crazy. I don't even know what you're talking about. But it really, for us, it feels good to help you warriors, because you are warriors. You are saving our kids on a daily basis, all of you. And where else would we put these foundation dollars? It's saving our kids is huge, and it's important. And I'll never forget. One day I had I had a breast implants, and I was getting them removed. Part of this process, I had Lyme disease, and I had in 2020, I had also developed some crazy illnesses. Lyme disease was one of them.
Mm-hmm.
So I had implants removed, and I was in the process of figuring that out as well, right? There's a whole big scam around Lyme disease and it being a bioweapon, and basically all these antibiotics that the traditional medicine was also killing people with Lyme disease. Anyways, I
Right.
digress, but I remember, so I was coming, I guess at the end of the surgery, or even in the middle of the surgery, my doctor tells me that I started crying, saying, "Save the children."
Wow.
And when I was coming out, I kept saying, "Save the children," and I was just crying profusely, and I didn't remember any of this. She said, "Listen, you weren't here. Like, no one's ever done this. Like, you need to go home and just talk into a microphone and figure out what God was trying to tell you." And so I did that, and I just was crying and crying again, and everything flashed right in front of me about the vaccines and how I need to help the movement around vaccines. And it was all about the hepatitis B shot and what that's doing to babies at 1 day old, and just how all of the vaccines are compounding, compounding, compounding. And so I'm like, okay, I guess God told me what I need to be doing with these foundation dollars. And so, it's just been full on since then. And of course, I've got my school, Center Academy, which we've brought in amazing doctors like Dr. Thomas, Dr. Palevsky, to speak to our parents and teach them what is in these vaccines. And I feel very happy to know that so many parents stopped vaccinating because of the data that they learned in these meetings that we've had. In fact, we had Bobby Kennedy January of 2021 speaking at our school, and his conversation got many of our parents to not get the COVID shot,
Right.
and many of our teachers to not get the COVID shot. So I'm really just trying to give you all the platform to share the very, very incredible information that you have. And also, Dr. Hook, you were on my new podcast that hasn't officially aired yet, but the podcast is going to be doing the same thing, just highlighting and showcasing all of you brilliant, amazing minds that are fighting the good fight. And it's tireless and it's not easy, but I really believe we are here at a really great time, and having Bobby Kennedy in the position he's in, I mean, it's just, the future looks bright, and it's just more and more exciting every single day.
Absolutely. And whenever I see efforts that are helping children to become healthy again, it's interesting. I always see that centers are behind it in some way, shape, or form. You and your husband, David, have helped immensely and had done so much. And like I said before, once you were red pilled, you wasted absolutely no time just jumping right in. So thank you so much for that. And Maureen, I want to talk a little bit more about you've got episodes of the Children's Health Solution series. Talk about the episodes that you have. I think there's 2 available, if I'm not correct, and then but you're planning future episodes so parents can watch this series directly at your website, Millions Against Mandates. Tell us a little bit more about what they're about.
And we're also on Substack, millionsactivatingmiracles.substack.com. And we started Substack because of the censorship, because MAM was taken down, or we were shadow banned during COVID and had to spend some funds rebuilding. But now we do have Substack. That's one way they can watch these episodes, but they can also watch them from Millions Against Mandates. But one unique thing is that, and this was Layla's idea, we're going to be having a live Q&A with the doctors who presented. Dr. Mumper presented and explained all kinds of solutions for childhood anxiety. What are some of the natural things you can do for that. Then we did the episode on autism, and there's tons of information. You know, I was saying in the beginning, I organized conferences for 10 years. It's hard sometimes to pay the money to go to a conference, to absorb the pearls and the nuggets, it can be overwhelming, although it's also wonderful. CHD has some great conferences, and Dan was great, and MAPS is great, but we're trying to bring the nuggets to people, and we want it to go to the masses. You know, there's so many of us that have been involved in this for a long time, and I personally appreciate people of like mind watching these episodes, but I'm really asking people to share them with their neighbors, with their friends, with the mother down the road whose child has autism and doesn't know the first thing about dietary changes, or has never been told about the role of magnesium or how the gut affects brain chemistry. And these are so important, and they're explained so well in these episodes. So that we have the anxiety one, we have the autism one. We just recorded one on ADHD with Dr. Marianne Block on natural approaches for that condition. I just lined up Dr. Larry Pilevsky to talk about what parents, now that many parents are awakening to the toxic effects of childhood vaccines, some people are really, really concerned. And so we want to do an episode with Dr. Larry talking about what parents can do to help their child regain their total health and not develop problems, or if they have, possibly reverse some of those. And then we also have an upcoming one with Dr. Nancy O'Hara, who's a specialist in PANDAS and PANS. And Dr. O'Hara is going to talk about how so many times aggressive behavior, and different types of neurodevelopmental problems can be related to deep infections, and they have these conditions. So I'd like to also explore obesity and type 2 diabetes and eczema and allergies and all kinds of conditions that plague our children today that are preventable. That's a big area we talk about. As a matter of fact, when we talked about the autism, when we had the autism episode, I put an article in there I'd written years ago on ways to prevent autism. And not that there's any one magic bullet, but there's things for people to think about prior to conceiving and during their pregnancy and in early childhood that can help prevent that in some instances. So it's really exciting because we are focusing on answers, and we are providing wonderful physicians to present this information. And like I said, it's kind of easy to engage with because Layla and the physicians and who were there and myself were kind of having a casual conversation. So it's easy to follow. And then it's enhanced with these visuals. And I just have to really thank Layla again, because this series would have never happened without her support. And she really got the concept early on and wanted to be part of it and support it in every way she could. And then, of course, bringing Dr. Mumper in was just so terrific. So. But we'll be featuring other physicians, and then every few episodes we'll bring a couple of the doctors for a live Q&A where people, parents, teachers, therapists, pediatricians can get on and ask questions of these doctors, specific questions that they may have about that particular condition. Because big thing to remember is every child is different. You know, there's no cookie cutter approach, but we do cover the general areas of health.
Well, that is so good. And, you know, I encourage everybody that's watching, check this out. Check out the episodes that have aired already on childhood anxiety, on autism, the upcoming episodes that are coming out. I'm so excited. I really, you know, as this grows, as this develops, I really want to have you back on to talk about your experience, educating the individuals. The thing that really stands out about the way that this is produced is it's conversational, it's user friendly, it's the type of information that you can take to your neighbor that has been affected by one of these childhood diagnoses or one of these illnesses, and you can recommend to them, and you can recommend to them with a really, really good feeling. So thank you all again. Thank you for coming, Dr. Mumper. So we can find out more about MAPS at medmaps.org. Is that correct?
Yes, medmaps.org, and you can find out about the upcoming conference starting March 13th. And then there's also going to be a fall conference, which is going to be somewhere in the Phoenix area on the weekend of like September 7th, 8th, 9th, I think. It's always the first weekend after Labor Day. So we would love to see as many clinicians as possible. This is such a huge problem that we say if you've got a diploma on your wall where you take care of kids, then you should be coming to MAPS, because we need a team of providers to help with this incredible tsunami of neurologic impairments that we've seen in the last couple of decades.
Right. And Layla, if you go to Center Wellness, will we be able to tune into your podcast once that is started?
I'll send you the link. I'm not sure exactly where. I know my talks are very heavy on vaccines, so it might be somewhere on Rumble or BitChute. I know they're still heavily censoring on YouTube, but I'll send you those links as soon as they're out.
Right. We'll get those out in the show notes. Thank you. Thank you so much. It was an honor to be on your show.
Yes, thank you. And Dr. Mumper and Maureen, I would love to have both of you on my show as well, if you don't mind.
I'd be delighted.
And then Maura, millionsagainstmandates.org, and then you can follow the links to the Children's Health Solution series. And then you said you were also on Substack?
Yes, we're at Millions Activating Miracles. Again, I got tired of the heavy load that some of us project, and so I did an offshoot of MAM called Millions Activating Miracles. And that's why, I get to work with people like Liz and Layla and you, Brian, because there's so many people around the world now who literally are creating miracles through their work. And so that's what we put the Children's Health Solution series under.
Absolutely. Well, it's an honor to have you all on the show. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you, everybody, for watching this episode of Doctors and Scientists. This is important. Tell your friends about this. Tell your friends to check out this episode, and tell your friends to check out the Children's Health Solution series.
Tell us your name.
My name is Jennifer Rowe.
And you have a story to tell us, don't you, about your son?
Yes, he is 13 now. So he was born in 2002.
How was he when he was born?
He was good. He was a week early, but he was good. And
did he have the Hep B at birth?
He had it the second day, yes. And he didn't really have a lot of well visits because he was sick from 2 months on, and we were at the doctor a dozen times his first year, and we were vaccinated.
So he had
every time.
He had his baby vaccines. Do you remember exactly how many he had?
All the ones that you have to have in Alabama. He had the whole course of Hep B, the DTaP, varicella, the hib, he had everything. And he got the MMR at 15 months, and that was in with a course of shots. So he also had the DTaP, and there were a bunch all at once. And I know that he shouldn't have had anything else with the MMR now, but I knew something was wrong, and I just suspected, and he was sick a lot, and I eventually ended up putting work because you can't. I was a single mother, and we were at the doctors all the time. And he had asthma. He got asthma. He had eczema, and everything. He was on antibiotics constantly.
So every time, a bit like Billy really, every time you went to the doctor, he just gave you another course of antibiotics for your son.
Yes. You can look at the pictures from before his last course of shots, which we never did anything after 15 months. That was the last. And that was the big one, the MMR. And you can look at his pictures, and I know that he was there before, but he was gone after. You can see, and he just looks sick, glazed over. Even when he wasn't on antibiotics, he was always, and it took till he was 3 to navigate the system, to get somebody to listen to me, to visit multiple doctors, multiple tests, and it was very difficult to get somebody to even talk to me about autism in Alabama. They just wanted to send him to feeding therapy. They just wanted to send him to speech therapy. And he was almost 4 by the time he talked. And we were lucky that we did find people, but as I've gone back and looked at the timeline in his records, I went back to his pediatrician, and after somebody, the neurologist, I was worried that he was having seizures. I had seen his eyes roll back in his head, and the neurologist said, these are very subtle, like autism symptoms. And then the next visit to the pediatrician, she tried to put us on clonidine and Risperdal, and it's just
to heal the autism-like symptoms.
Right. We got no help. He was hung out to dry, and it's heartbreaking that anybody has to go through that and deal with. He never slept till he was 5. He never slept through the night. I feel like I heard somebody talking the other day about having this special bond with their son, and their son was always hugging them, and I said, I didn't get that. When he was little, he didn't want to be held. I didn't hold him when he slept. He wouldn't let me. He wanted to stand up, jump around, and we had a hard time getting a diagnosis because he engaged people, but it wasn't comfortable engaging. It was, an parallel play, but he just wasn't there. He was going through all the motions, but he wasn't there, and he never quit moving, ever. And it's
tough.
Yeah, and I'm very fortunate that I'm very fortunate that I knew something was wrong, and I didn't take anybody's word for it that nothing was wrong. I just kept looking. I just kept going from one person to the next till somebody could help us. So for the past 10 years, we have done things to recover him, and we'll continue to do that because he'll never be able to detoxify well on his own. We have to be careful, and have to pay attention to what he eats. And we're a lot luckier than a lot of people. I got him potty trained at 3. I got him to swim at 5. We just kept doing it until it's, and
we're luckier than most people because our children survived.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm so grateful because I don't know what would have happened if we would have had a flu shot, or if we would have continued and got his second MMR.
It's tough out there, and every parent is doing the best they can, and your story is one of hope because your child got immeasurably better than you were told that he would be. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
we were so grateful to you. You've got a lot of heart, a lot of love, and
Thank you, Polly.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.